The Basilisk is a new design for Razer and is actually quite comfortable. Combine that with the top optical sensor, solid build and great performance, and this is going to be a top recommendation, but only for certain people. When it comes to competitive FPS players, many go for mice that are under 100 grams. This weighs in at about 109 grams, that's with a bit of cable, and you can get it down to 107 without the clutch piece. So it might not be for them. To understand the shape, we can look at the G502. Simply put, this is like a more comfortable, slightly bigger version of that. Looking at the right side, we can see the same sort of subtle curves and ledges to assist with grip. Then the slope of the right button, and comfort groove in the left, but no DPI buttons, which is good because I always slipped and hit those. On the left side there's a sniper button, but it's in the form of a clutch on the Basilisk. It can be removed or you can use a shorter button. This is probably the best sniper button implementation I've tried so far. Just a feel when pressing it in, the fact that it's out of the way, and it can be customized to some degree. I actually really like this feature. And of course it has a thumb ledge, which feels comfortable, but I prefer mice without them. The rubberized grips feel good too, even with the extra grooves in them, and those are on both sides. Now looking at the base, there are 3 large mouse feet, and 1 around the sensor. They glide smoothly, all good. More importantly, you can really see how similar the shapes are. But the major difference, other than the profile switch on the Basilisk, is that it also has a resistance dial, which alters the resistance on the wheel. That means you can change it to be smooth, or if you really need the steps to be noticeable, you can change it to that too. Here's a listen with full tension. Now some tension. And no tension. So the problem with this copy is that it has a bit of truffle before the click, and that's what you're hearing. Otherwise, when it has no tension, it would be silent. Now let's move on to the buttons. The Omron switches, so left and right feel light, the left feeling a little hollow at times, while the right is a bit sharp. So they're not perfect, but I didn't have any accidental clicks, and it's great that they're separate from the shell. As usual, mouse 3 is a fair bit harder to press in, and of course it's slightly loose on this one. The side buttons feel great, they're smooth with a nice click, good quality. They do have a bit of travel, but it's still good, and the DPI buttons don't have any protection around them, but they seem well positioned to avoid accidental hits, although you do have to move your finger fairly far back to press them in. In latency testing, they compete well with the G703. Neither test is accurate, but I haven't felt any problem using them in game either. Back to the shape, here it is next to the other Razer mice. It's smaller than the Death Adder, much closer to the lens head, and I would say it's much more comfortable than both. From the side, you can see the buttons are fairly high, and the hump is long and centralized. That should make it easier to hold for a lot of people, but it still depends on hand size. So the grip width is about 6 cm, the length is roughly 12.2 cm, and the height is about 4.1. I'd say this could be used in palm grip up to 18.5 cm, claw grip 16 to 20, and fingertip 18 to 21. Ideally though, I'd say it's best suited to hands with a width of over 10 cm. As said, it's a top optical sensor, and testing it in game, I felt comfortable rocket jumping around, and I couldn't make it spin out moving it as fast as I could. And even in the tilt slam test, it didn't lose track. Zooming in for the sniper test, it tracks pixel by pixel and does it smoothly. I can't find any acceleration or deceleration. Looks good. And I can't feel any delay either. The liftoff distance appears to be under 1 DVD on cloth and hard pads. In the line test I couldn't see any problems. As usual, this sensor performs extremely well. When tapping and shaking the mouse, there is some rattle from the wheel. And something around the lens area too, but that's on most mice. Shouldn't be an issue at all. The quality of materials is good though, and this plastic that we've seen on Razer mice recently should be really durable too. The cable is a very smooth, flexible braid, just like the one on the lens head. This has got to be one of the best cables around at the moment. Barely know it's there when I'm playing, and it's just over 2 meters long. For software, it uses Razer Synapse 3. You can alter the buttons, like this, so you can have different sensitivity options. There's also keyboard, mouse, and macro. Here's a quick look at the macro editor. I don't use them personally. Then there is the Razer Hypershift, which means you can use the clutch with all the other buttons, essentially doubling the amount of commands on the mouse. Good for MMOs and desktop work. You can also set multiple profiles to the onboard memory. That means you can install Synapse once, set it up the way you like, and then uninstall it. You can set up to 5 DPI stages for each, from 100 to 16,000, and it's actually in steps of 50. It will round up or down depending where you drag it. It's an RGB mouse with 2 lighting zones, and it would take some time getting used to, but it seems fairly easy to customize the effects. And then there's surface calibration. At the highest liftoff distance, it's just over 1 DVD on a cloth pad. In terms of gameplay, I felt more comfortable aiming left and right than up and down, so I wouldn't recommend this style of mouse for Quake. That's not to say it can't be used, it definitely can, but I think it suits games that are more about left and right aiming, maybe like CSGO. It's a really good mouse if it's right for you. I really can't fault it in terms of build, materials and performance, other than the loose wheel, so it just depends on personal preference, and if you like this kind of shape and weight. I'd have to say I would much rather recommend this than the G502 for first person shooters. As an all-purpose mouse, the G502 is better, especially with the infinite scroll wheel, but the Basilisk is better for competitive gaming. It has nicer materials and buttons too. My one concern is originality. I don't like the idea of having so many clones on the market. While this is quite different and a big improvement in some ways, it's still very similar to the G502, but ignoring that for now, in short, it's a great mouse, but it is for a specific group of gamers. Hope that helps. Big thanks to Razer for sending it out for a review, and if you'd like to help support the channel, I'll leave the usual links in the description. Subscribe, like and share this video, and I'll catch you in the next.